立法會主席。
The President.
全體委員會係繼續審。
The committee stage will continue to consider the Road Tunnels Government Amendment Bill 2024. Mr. Michael Look. In this session, I will respond to Mr. Tien's amendment relating to Clause 15. The direction itself is close to what I advocate, that is, reduction as far as possible, but it's down to the magnitude. If it is excessive, people may find it unacceptable, and the timing must be right. If the timing is wrong, even if the matter is right or the direction is right, it doesn't work. So what is the timing? The takeover of the TLT Thailand Tunnel may not be the best time for residents in NT West. But if the government has a surplus, there is room for further negotiation. However, the government is having a deficit of over $10 trillion. So it's very unlikely that people would accept Mr. Tien's amendment, given the government is not in a position to be generous. Mr. Tien was not a member of the Bills Committee. He could not move the amendments in the committee. The timing isn't right because there was not enough time for him to talk to different parties. There may be people who are concerned about the government deficit. Well, Mr. Tien's proposal will end up with a 270 million deficit. There is also another issue. Will taxpayers be asked to subsidize fees that is payable by drivers? Well, if you own a car, most likely that you are in the middle class. But if you use government money to subsidize private car owners, it's not right. Some people criticize that on one hand people ask for reduction in social welfare, education, and elderly services, and on the other you ask for this. Well, I think that more time is needed. The direction is right, as I said. I said that there should be a reduction as far as possible. So what is the reasonable level? We should not stand to lose. The government said that a review will be conducted as soon as possible after 1 year. So please do it as soon as possible. So the review should be based on further reduction when there is no loss. There should be a balance. For the expenditure for running the TLT is about $400 million. But the government will lose $320 million. Of course, the government should not be asked to suffer a loss, but NT West residents should not lose the $320 million either. Commercial vehicles should be given a priority. They need to be taken care of first because they are very important to our economy and to the employment market. I will not oppose to Mr. Tien's amendments, but we have to abstain. The direction is close, but the magnitude is excessive. Timing is wrong. So I ask the government to use scientific data to be empirical and trying to strike a balance in the books when they introduce further reductions when it's necessary. Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Year before last, there was a diversion of traffic of the three tunnels. We supported Mr. Frankie Yick's amendment to lower fees for commercial vehicles. Commercial vehicles lose if they use the Cross Harbour Tunnel. At that time, for the three Cross Harbour Tunnels, if the tolls charge will not affect the traffic flow, that might be all right, even though it wasn't a complete proposal because of the rules of the procedures. Well, now the difference is that for all types of vehicles, there is a reduction. Mr. Michael TIEN seems to have lowered the expectations yesterday. He said he would accept if we all abstain. So we support Mr. Tien's proposal for us to abstain. Our association will abstain. Under the proposal, during non-peak, commercial vehicles will not pay tolls. This is in line with what we asked for, that is, further reduction to lower operation costs. It's not easy to make a living if you drive a goods vehicle. Anything can happen. There's a subsidiary of our association, that is one relating to light goods vehicle. They received some requests for assistance. There's a case that some people engage in illegal activities. There was a bogus transmission base using a hired goods vehicle. The police conducted an operation and caught the perpetrators. It was a good thing. The case was cracked. But the driver lost half a day of his earnings. Mr. Lam, how is it related to this bill? What I'm trying to say is that there is huge pressure on commercial vehicles. So whether the amendment is passed or not, I want to use this opportunity to speak for drivers of goods vehicles so the government will know the plight they're in. And I said in the second reading debate that cost recovery should not be the only consideration in the setting of toll levels. The impact of the proposal has been assessed by the government. There will be congestion at Tai Lam Tunnel and Ting Kau Bridge. The impact might not be significant, but what happens in the future should be considered too. That includes the Northern Metropolis. New infrastructures will only be commissioned in a few years. We see an increase in traffic flow for Tai Lam Tunnel, so that has to be considered. To control traffic flow, the fees for private cars should be adjusted first. Drivers of private cars are not grassroots. If there is a chance of any traffic congestions, private cars should not be using the tolls. We would be using the tunnels toll-free. Congestion costs time. For light goods vehicles, if they can save time, do another trip to deliver goods, there will be more earnings. We will abstain, as I submit. Let me remind members, this is the committee stage. We look at the amendments. The members should not repeat what they've said in the second reading debate. And they should not repeat their stance or repeat the provisions. Mr. Gary Zhang, we have two proposals, the government's and Mr. Tien's amendments. The frameworks are similar, time-varying tolls, and we have already discussed that in the second reading debate. So we have to look at the pros and cons of the different proposals. Is it right or wrong to set it at $14 or $15? We have to look at the rationale behind, whether the logic is consistent. Mr. Tien asked us to consider whether his proposals have any merits. I think there is some merits. It's very simple. When there is no congestion, it's toll-free. When there is congestion, then there are toll levels to regulate traffic. His proposal boils down to this. So that's the rationale. The biggest merit of his amendments is my reservations about the government's proposal. That is, peak is not about the time, it's about busy traffic. This is a Tuesday afternoon, evening at 7 o'clock. In January, Thailand Tunnel is southbound. You may not be able to see much. That's right, because there are no vehicles inside the tunnel. But this is peak. If you use this tunnel, Mr. Michael TIEN, please put down your placard. So another member is speaking. So even though there are no other vehicles, you are still paying the peak toll level, that is $45. So it doesn't add up. That's my reservation of the government's proposal. Under Mr. Tien's proposal, I think it's more reasonable and scientific if you differentiate different direction of travel. Well, it's called tidal traffic. Tidal traffic. I have looked at traffic data. In the morning, for the same direction, there may be a huge difference, that of 300% of different more from the morning and the evening peak. So there are major differences. If we look at the time, instead of looking whether it's a peak, is unreasonable. When I spoke to the secretary and the commissioner, they have answered me, and the secretary, Ms. Mabel Chen, gave us a positive answer. There is room for a review, so I accept that. Well, besides traffic, we have to look at the revenue. The different tunnels charge different levels. Some are even free. There are different considerations. Even some tunnels are toll-free. They are still running at a cost. Thailand Tunnel is different. It was BOT that was the operation mode. It had nothing to do with the government. Now the government is going to take over the tunnel. If the government incurs a deficit of a loss of $270 million a year, that will be another burden, and it's expected every year. We have huge reservations in this regard. Yes, the amendments have merits, but the government agree that there will be a review or some adjustments. In relation to the finance, I will abstain from Mr. Tien's amendments.
Mr. Lau Kwok-fan, thank you, President. On Mr. Tien's amendments, I agree some of the points he made. And I have made similar points to the Secretary or at previous meetings of the Council. As for whether road users should pay to use the roads, I do not agree, because pedestrians use pavements as well. And people who take public transport would be using the same road. I think infrastructure is for the benefit of society. It helps with development. During non-peak hours, the infrastructure should be available to users for free, and tolls should only be implemented when it is needed. We can look at what the mainland is doing. They have tidal lanes arrangement. At different times, for southbound and northbound traffic, there is different volume of traffic. I think there should be different tolls for better traffic distribution. I agree with this vision in the proposed amendments of Mr. Tien's. But I disagree with certain points made by Mr. Tien as well, or I think we should at least be prudent. For taxis and commercial vehicles, the tolls that Mr. Tien proposed are all-day uniform tolls. So these are tolls that would apply during peak hours as well. As I said earlier, I do not exactly agree with the Transport Department's model either. But with their projections, during peak hours, the VC ratio would be over 1. For taxis and commercial vehicles, if we lower the tolls even further, it may increase the volume of traffic. Therefore, I think we should be prudent. We should consider the options carefully. We need to think about how upon the takeover of the tunnel, if we adjust the tolls, we would already have a congestion, because when there was traffic distribution of the 3 harbor crossings, New Territories West, Yuen Long, and Tuen Mun residents complained that there was more traffic at the Western Harbor crossing, which they used to take before. Lastly, on public finance, as some members said, while I do agree that the user's pay principle should not apply to roads, we will have revenue generated by the use of the Tai Lam Tunnel, and it will help cover the costs. The costs did not appear in the accounts before. When faced with the current economic situation, if you are charging $700 million in tolls, when you're talking about the cost being only $400 million, I think there is room to lower the tolls. But with Mr. Tien's proposed amendments, we will be suffering a loss of around $200 million. That is not ideal. So I think we should think about what is going to happen during the peak hours and the impact on public finance. The DAB cannot vote in favor or vote against the proposed amendments of Mr. Tien's. The government said that they would conduct a review. I hope that it would take place soon and that it should be comprehensive. We need to really think about how when the peak time slots should be, and can we adopt the tidal traffic arrangement. There should be a comprehensive review, as I said. I so submit. Thank you, President. Mr. Michael TIEN. President, I wrote some notes. I have to respond to the views of members one by one. If it's not enough, I'll speak for another round. I wouldn't mention names. I don't really remember either. Some said my figures are not justified and there's no proof. I would say it's my vision. I just don't have any proof for my vision. plain and simple. And during the Bills Committee meeting, I asked the administration for figures, and there weren't any figures provided. Now the administration has provided some analyses. They are talking about 0.77, 0.86, the VC ratio with my proposed amendments, and then we would suffer a loss with my proposed amendments. And that there would only be peak and off-peak time slots. If there is no traffic, it would decrease the government's revenue only, and the operating loss would be $270 million. We have 9 tunnels, and the maintenance costs of these tunnels would be hundreds of millions of dollars, but they are not charging any tolls for those tunnels. We really have to think about what is happening here. Some colleague also mentioned that for some time slots, the tunnel is available for free. There may be unnecessary traffic. We have heard that there are large-scale projects that would have a high cost. If you have infrastructure that is not have any congestion, why are you building that in the first place? Thailand Tunnel has had plans to decrease the tolls. And I think that 30 odd years before, when the government built Tuen Mun Road, would they have plans to charge any tolls? Thailand Tunnel is different because it was operating on a BOT model, and just like Western Harbour Crossing, they are saying that need to charge tolls. Basically, we have to close the gap here upon takeover in the accounts. And the Western Harbour Crossing is now charging the same tolls as the Cross Harbour Tunnel. They only have different tolls for peak time slots. With the same logic, if you're comparing Cross Harbour Tunnel and Western Harbour Crossing, if we are comparing Tuen Mun Road and the Thailand Tunnel, and for New Territories West residents, they can only pick either one for commute. So Tuen Mun Road is available for free. Why is Thailand Tunnel tolled? I just don't understand. They didn't even mention the maintenance costs, so I couldn't really draw a fair comparison. I have 2 minutes left. A member said that my proposals weren't discussed. And they found it to be abrupt that we're discussing the proposed amendments now. It is abrupt and maybe irresponsible. That's what I heard, I think. In fact, on 3rd of January, I participated in the Bills Committee meeting. I mentioned the proposals. Then there are records on this. I talked about this. We would only charge tolls during the peak time slots, and for other times it should be free. We didn't talk much in detail because the administration did not provide any figures. It is only after repeated pursuits I made they provided figures to us. At the time, they did not provide any figures to us. How could I propose solid amendments then? If I can't even propose amendments now, if we are not going to discuss the proposed amendments, what's the point? I think I'll stop here. Thank you, President. Mr. Luk Chong Hong, excuse me, no, Dr. Chen Han Pan. President, the Bills Committee convened one meeting. During the Bills Committee meeting, we had detailed discussions. Why was one meeting enough? because the operation model has been discussed multiple times, especially during the traffic distribution for the 3 harbor crossings related sessions. Now, why did I mention the Bills Committee meeting? With time-varying tolls, it may be a complex arrangement, but it has been discussed multiple times before. We understand the concept very well by now. That's why we have saved time in our discussions. And during the Bills Committee meeting, everyone was able to speak, including Mr. Michael TIEN, who was not a Bills Committee member, and he said in particular the reasons why he thought Tai Lam Tunnel shouldn't be towed, and that he wanted some figures on the potential congestion on Tin Cow Bridge. At the time, we did not hear of any intention to propose amendments, which is why we discussed only the government's proposals. The government did provide a response. The government's response then was the toll arrangement would not only have regard to the current traffic, they would need to have regard to the future traffic. We only have 1 million odd population now, but later on we'll have 2.5 million population in that area. We will also have Honshu and Kutong North having population intake in a few years. So what will happen to the traffic then? Things are uncertain right now. So if we are being generous and have the tunnel available for free right now, we are not planning for the future. As the Bills Committee chairman, I have granted enough time for people to discuss the proposals of the government, and once we discussed the policy-related issues, we went into clause-by-clause examination. Before the meeting, we had many exchanges. Everyone was clear about the model and the operations of the tunnel. Now, when we're talking about the tunnel being available for free, if we charge tolls later on, it may not be ideal in terms of policy continuity. And before, a member said for the harbor crossings arrangement, they talked about public expectations. With tolls varying, they would understand. But if something is available for free and then it becomes a charge or toll tunnel, then the public may find it hard to accept. Let's not talk about the amount of tolls right now, but if people expect the tunnel to be a toll tunnel, when there is a change in population, you can make changes more flexibly. If that power rests with the government, I think it is a wise decision, and it is essentially facilitating the government to be a gatekeeper. We need to think about not only the private car drivers, we need to think about those taking the public transport. We have many NT-West residents commuting to the urban areas. If they have to suffer through congestion every day, it is not ideal. And as members of the council, we need to respond to the public needs as well. As a part of DAB, we will vote against the proposed amendments of Mr. Michael TIEN. We will elaborate further on this later.
Mr. Michael, look, President, I would like to elaborate on my previous points. In the last round, I talked about things from the public's perspective. Now I'd like to move on to the trade. Now, this amendment really makes me scratch my head. I consulted one of our member union, the Commercial Vehicle Drivers Union. So of course, with a lower transport cost, it would be better for the business. But we can't agree with one thing. That is a time-varying toll for commercial vehicles. Now, when we rationalize the traffic flow for the 3 tunnels, we abided by one important principle, that is no time-varying toll for commercial vehicles. They don't want to be caught up with the complicated calculation. As long as the cost justify the operation, they will use the tunnel. They don't want to calculate the impact on the operation by different tolls. So they told me it is best if we just adopt the operation for the III.Gov tunnel. Both tunnels have similar lanes, and they are both linkages between the new territories and the urban areas. So $20 for CVs, $24 for taxis, and $28 for medium to heavy goods vehicles. That's the III.Gov tunnels toll level. The government didn't take on board our proposal. So we think we need to revisit this suggestion in the future. And also the government raised a concern. That is the proposed toll level of $5 for the taxi trade by Mr. Michael TIEN. Of course, the taxi industry is thrilled, but I'm personally worried that this is too steep a cut. Now, the government said there would be a traffic queue extending 240 meters long. Well, I'm not actually convinced. We need to see more data. It seems that the government is just bluffing with that scenario. But on the other hand, I think Mr. Michael TIEN is too optimistic, while the Transport Department is too pessimistic. So I would say the government's proposal is a starting point. I agree with Mr. Ben Chan that it would be bad for the optics if the government increased the fare after a reduction. Now, if the government waived the tunnel toll fee, it would become a benefit measure, and that would lead to issues. Now, the thinking behind tunnel toll is that if the tunnel is obviously a shortcut, then we should charge a reasonable toll. Now, if the tunnel is a thoroughfare, like a tunnel to Kai Tak, or if it is very short, then it is reasonable to waive the toll charged. If the tunnel is long and is a speedy shortcut, then it is reasonable to charge a toll. So we think we need a balanced proposal. Mr. Michael TIEN's proposal is not without merit, and there are some elements that is worth consideration by the government. We should have more discussion in society about his plan. So after the government's proposal has been implemented for a period of time, when we have the data, when we have an open model, which can convince the public that the fare level is reasonable and can help people, then that would be best. Mr. Ben Chan. Thank you, President. In the previous round, I said that we shouldn't lead to a congestion in the tunnel. Now, Mr. Michael TIEN said that we should charge a toll for peak time slots. But what about non-peak time slots? There is no congestion. Should we still charge a toll? It seems that he has a point. But if we are allowed to use the tunnel for free, then there will be more drivers. But does that mean that I won't make a return trip during peak time slots? That would extend the traffic queue. If I leave home during non-peak hours, it doesn't mean that I won't return home during peak hours, and that would lead to congestion in the tunnel. That is just simple logic. So should the government be generous first and then become stingy afterwards? Now, considering the future population growth in New Territories North, we need to build more infrastructure like railways and tunnels and roads. But if you waive the tunnel toll, you can't expect people not to drive and use the tunnel. I have been living in Yuen Long for many years. The pace of population growth and the situation of traffic congestion in Yuen Long is felt by all who live in Yuen Long. When we return home after work, when we pass by Pok Oi roundabout, even with the traffic lights, there's still a long queue. Some drivers told me they took a nap and they still found themselves in the queue. Now the Sap Bat Hang roundabout is also heavily congested. I fully respect Mr. Michael TIEN. He's a good friend. I enjoy a good time with him. And I respect his proposed amendments. It is within a council member's right, and it is also our responsibility. It gives us a chance to debate the merits of the plan. There is no right or wrong. It's just that we believe in different things. As a long-time resident in Yuen Long, from my observation, it is my belief that if you waive the toll for that tunnel, there will be many more vehicles using the tunnel, and then the government would have a difficult time increasing the fare. Most residents in Yuen Long use public transport and buses, even if they live in luxurious building, because it is so convenient to get to Central and Admiralty via bus. So traffic smoothness is something that impacts those living in Yuen Long and the area. When you try to go home, you found yourself caught in the traffic jam, and then you ask the government to raise the tunnel toll. But that would be too late. Now the solution is to complete the Route 11 as soon as possible to provide another alternative option for New Territories North. As I've said on many occasions, I urge the government to review the traffic toll charged in that area. Now, if there is, I hope there's one day when tunnel toll can be fully waived. But however, from a pragmatic point of view, I and my party members will vote against the amendments proposed by Mr. Michael TIEN. Mr. Michael TIEN, President, Mr. Ben Chen is someone who gained my respect the longer I know him. In the Bills Committee, I put forward my proposal, but there was no data, so I couldn't convince the official. I consider whether I should make a scene to keep battering the official, but I wasn't thick-skinned enough. So, and then I waited for the data. So now I learned something from this whole episode. So I want to tell my fellow council members, I'm not a troublemaker. It's just that I feel helpless as to what I can do further. So I did my best to explain my rationale to my colleagues. I even present you with a chart, the so-called tidal effect and those jargons. Anyway, Now, some tunnels cost $36 billion. For example, the Central Wan-Chai bypass, and there is a zero toll, and of course, the deficit is huge, and that is expected. For New Territories Northwest, even if my proposal, you can get $160 million in revenue. There is maintenance costs and repair costs. With my proposal, you can get $160 million, but not for the other 9 tunnels. So that's why I'm so worked up about this. It's true everywhere. Tai Po Road, T8. I always ask the government to build the Sha Tin bypass as soon as possible. That's not my district. The East Kowloon rail line, that's not my district, but I'm still pestering the government about it. So that's just who I am. Now, if the toll level is set at 0, it would attract a lot of vehicles to switch from peak time slots to non-peak time slots. Well, I think that's a good thing. What's wrong with that? So I don't understand what that point is all about. Almost every member said that they trust the forecast of the government. Everyone says that. Even I trust the government's forecast. However, we should try whether it will lead to congestion if we waive the toll. Now, the government said the volume capacity ratio would be 0.77 or 86. It is not as high as 0.98. Well, I think that means my plan is feasible. The government said that their plan would bring $700 million in revenue. Mine just bring $160 million. Well, I wonder how the 1.2 million residents in New Territories North feels. They have been waiting for 20 years. They are waiting for the commissioning of Route 11, but that is 2036. Still 11 years to go. Some members said they supported my direction, but this is not the opportune time. Does it mean that when there is a fiscal deficit, we would charge a toll? When there is not a fiscal deficit, we will waive the toll? That puzzles me. There is never an opportune time. I don't think the toll level should be pegged with the fiscal position of the government. The principle is users pay and also efficiency first and no congestion. Or is the government trying to make big bucks from the tunnel? Just say so. Now, Mr. Michael Look just said a minute ago that he agrees with many of my points, but. He says that a $5 toll for taxi would lead to a 240-meter long traffic queue. Now, when the data is fed into the model, Mr. Michael TIEN, may I continue? You can start your second round now. Now, there is a huge, Mr. Michael TIEN, I remind you, this is your 5th round of speech. Please be succinct. Please come back to the debate on CSA. The government's assumption is that when people care about the toll, they would use the Two-Moon Road. So reducing the toll from $30 to 0, even being so, the increase in traffic volume would be caused by taxis solely. So that explains the 260-meter long traffic queue. Now, the $2 transport fare concession scheme and reduction of toll fee, this is all about the public. Now, there is a $3.9 billion cost overrun for the Tuen Mun Chet Lap Kok tunnel, and the government is only subsidizing $6 billion. If government officials have the salary frozen for 1 year, there would be $8 billion in savings. Now, we are just arguing about the $270 million in saving per year, and that seems insignificant.
Bear with me for a bit. Let me check if I've responded to all the points. Mr. Tien, are you going to continue? I'm going through my notes. Bear with me. Well, that's more or less all. Mr. Dennis Lau. Thank you, Chairman. I oppose to Mr. Tien's proposal amendments. The reasons are: first, I don't understand why he differentiates tolls for different times for southbound and northbound traffic. When we consider tolls for a tunnel, we don't look at the morning, evening peak and the direction of the traffic. He has not taken into account future development of the northern metropolis, and this in turn will have a direct impact on future adjustments of tolls. The government will have difficulties to do that. I'm concerned that if there are different tolls for different directions, in the morning, northbound traffic, there may be congestion. No one can tell. And if there is indeed a congestion, who is to blame? The government, residents, or members? Different stakeholders have different views. Of course, it's best not having to pay for drivers from the driver's perspective. From Tuen Mun to the north, there are two routes. Shorter route saves on fuel and time. If you don't charge the use of that route, tunnel capacity may be exceeded. And if a driver is asked to choose at the junction whether to use Tuen Mun Road or Tai Lam Tunnel, the uncertainty itself will cause hazards. Very often, I drive from Kowloon to Tuen Mun. There is heavy traffic going to Tuen Mun. If there is no charge, it will be dangerous when a driver is asked to decide at the junction to choose a route. If there is no toll charge, then how will the government assess the toll levels of the other tunnels? Will the public expect further reductions? That's another uncertainty. Well, taxis under the amendment will pay only $5, a change from $28 on certain dates. Of course, it's good for taxi drivers. Don't forget that tunnel fees are borne by passengers, whether it's $28 or $5. There is little impact on taxi drivers because passengers are the ones to pay. My concern is that how will the traffic change if the amendments are implemented According to Mr. Tien, in the morning there is less traffic northbound. I think it's a bit naive for him to think like that, and it's without any scientific basis as well. I ask members to either oppose or abstain on the amendment. When it comes to future toll levels of tunnels in Hong Kong, will there be room for further reduction? Will the government do something that instills confidence, something that will boost our economic development? I think that's more important. Mr. Gary Zhao. Well, there is traffic data that's open to the public. You'll find the data in relation to southbound, northbound traffic. So Mr. Tien did not just pluck it out of thin air. Why is there a need for time varying toll? Because at different times there is a difference between traffic. There is a difference in traffic volume. If there is huge traffic volume, the peak time charge is a surcharge. When tunnel capacity is not fully used, there is no reason for a surcharge. That is very scientific. You will find the data and information on the Transport Department's website. Morning, northbound, that is from Kowloon, Tsuen Wan to the New Territories. The busiest hour is about 990 vehicle trips. The capacity of the Tai Lam Tunnel is about 4,000 vehicle trips. That's why in the so-called morning peak from New Territories to the urban areas, it's not busy. So there is no reason to impose such a charge. I need to clarify that. Does anyone else want to speak? If not, I now call upon the Secretary for Transport and Logistics to speak. After the Secretary has spoken, I will ask Mr. Michael TIEN, mover of the amendments, to speak again. Then the debate will come to a close. The Bills Committee did not propose any amendments in relation to the bill. However, Mr. Tien's amendment aims to overhaul the government's proposal. His amendment has deviated from a scientific approach that avoids traffic congestion and operational deficit. The government opposes to Mr. Tien's amendments. The government's policy objective is very clear and is supported by the general public. And this is to ensure that there is smooth traffic at the Tai Lam Tunnel while diverting traffic flow from Tuen Mun Road and To Lo Highway. The government's proposal will optimize the use of the capacity of the Tai Lam Tunnel, as well as respond to public aspiration for lower tolls. In relation to private cars, the government's proposal is that they will pay $30 during normal time. It's based on objective traffic data. Currently, traffic from New Territories during normal times, the traffic flow is higher than non-peak. There is also the added demand from the northern metropolis and economic activities. We think that traffic flow will continue to climb. When we assess the toll levels, we have to look forward and leave us room. The $18 non-peak toll is set based on the huge resources involved in the running of the tunnels. Say, for example, engagement of an operator, round-the-clock ventilation and lighting, maintenance of the e-toll system. The proposed level is already a cost price. For commercial vehicles, the government's proposal has already significantly reduced the toll fees to a uniform rate of $43. The rate of reduction is 33 to 80%. It helps divert some commercial vehicles to use Tai Lam Tunnel instead of Tuen Mun Road. This route saves on time, fuel, and journey time. The uniform rate makes it certain for the operation of the logistics sector. The sector will not have to adjust their working hours to tie in with cheaper tolls. This protects frontline workers and it provides certainties when they deal with clients. For taxis, the government has considered the fact that the efficiency, travel mode, and the road usage of taxis, and they are similar to private cars. That's why we draw the reference from private cars. We propose a toll of $28, a reduction by 52%. I think it will be conducive to the operation of the trade. The government opposes to Mr. Tien's amendments for the following reasons as well. First, the amendments will cause traffic congestions during peak time. This affects all drivers that use the tunnel during that time. The government's proposal maximizes the remaining capacity of Tuen Mun of Tai Lam Tunnel. For the upstream connecting roads near Yuen Long, that is from Yuen Long Highway northbound to Cheng Long Highway, the traffic is already very busy. Further reduction will cause congestion without alleviating pressure from Tuen Mun Road and Tolo Highway. According to the analysis of the Transport Department, the significant reduction from $28 to $5 for taxis will generate huge traffic. And the vehicle capacity ratio will increase to 1.02, resulting in a traffic queue of 250 meters. In addition, the additional flow will cause congestion at Ting Kau Bridge. The vehicle capacity ratio will increase to 1.19, resulting in a traffic queue of 200 meters. This will cause a negative impact on traffic from Tuen Mun Highway, Tai Lam Tunnel, and to Ting Kau Bridge. From Yuen Long to Cheng Yi and urban areas will be congested as well. As a result, there will be congestions at the 3 thoroughfare. Under the amendments, there will be no tolls for the use of the tunnel. As a result, more traffic will use the tunnel, resulting in a longer journey time and a heavier traffic at Ting Kau Bridge. Journey times will increase from NT Northwest to the urban areas. Passengers of public transportation will suffer as well. The amendment also violates the government's proposal to strike a balance, and it has far-reaching implications. It does more harm than good. The amendment will also reduce the operational efficiency of commercial vehicles. Travel time will increase. There will be congestion at the Tai Lam Tunnel. For commercial vehicles, time is money. As a result, their operational cost will increase, which is not conducive to the operation of the logistics sector. And the amendments are rather complicated in its operation. This will cause a dispute between drivers and passengers and clients. Uniform rate is better. Another impact is that it violates the government's policy objective to abide by the principles of cost recovery and user pay principle. Under Mr. Tien's amendment, 80 85% of the time, the government will not be able to receive any tunnel tolls. As a result, every year the Thailand Tunnel will see a drop in revenue of $130 billion. There will be an annual operational deficit of $270 billion. And that means other users will subsidize users of this tunnel. It runs counter to the government's principle of user pay and cost recovery. And these revenues will go into the government's general account, which pay for government services. Well, as I said, that the government abides by a number of principles in the assessment of toll level. That includes traffic management needs, priority to public transport, efficiency, cost recovery, affordability, and the environment. When we set toll levels, we also consider the specific factors of the tunnel, say for example location, target groups, traffic management needs, before we set suitable fees. We consider our proposal based on scientific and comprehensive data and analysis. We have fully considered members' views. In a year and a half after the implementation of the new tolls, we will take into account the actual situation and consider the data involved. We will conduct a review on the toll levels of Thailand Tunnel, if possible, as well as future commissioning of infrastructure. Members' comments include time-varying tolls for private cars, shortening the peak duration. They have already been incorporated into the bill. I ask members to consider the overall social interest and oppose to the amendments of Mr. Michael TIEN. I so submit.
Mr. Michael TIEN, would you like to speak again? Yes. Chair, I propose amendments to say specifically the government does not have a coherent logic. If you are making sure that you're going to implement tolls, you should implement tolls for all 9 tunnels. The tolls you have here are ridiculous. Not only is it a user's pay, you actually are making a profit of $320 million. So why not charge even higher tolls? Maybe you can charge tolls as high as that will generate a profit of $900 million. So why are you trying to make profit out of a tunnel? A profit of $320 million. Are you targeting New Territories West residents in particular? Because it seems that other areas' residents are not suffering. Well, I can say everything is possible. And if everyone say everything is possible, this discussion is just all guess. There's no justification. Every time I was in Campton or Yuen Long, some citizens would tell me they have been waiting for the tolls to be affordable for so long. If there is no congestion, why not treat it the same way as To Moon Road? There are a number of people actually think this way. Has the government consulted them? If you have, can you tell me what feedback they gave you? If they say they accept decreased tolls, then it is easier for me to accept your proposal so that I can explain to them that this is accepted by residents. I implore members to support my proposed amendments that have a clear vision. And I am only asking you to abstain from voting. That's it from me. Thank you. I put the question to you that the clauses with no amendment as set out in the appendix to the script stand part of the bill. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. We now vote on the amendments. Mr. Michael TIEN, you may move your amendments. Chairman, I move the amendments set out in the appendix to the script. I propose the question to you that Mr. Michael TIEN's amendments be passed. Mr. Michael TIEN has claimed a division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
開始表決。
Will members please proceed to vote? Will members please check their votes? If there are no queries, voting shall now stop. The results will be displayed. We have 37 present, 0 in favor, 26 against, 11 abstentions from the election committee for functional and geographical constituencies, 47 present, 2 in favor, 33 against, and 11 abstentions. I think the question is not agreed by majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendments negative. And now put the question to you that Clause 15 stand part of the bill. Mr. Michael TIEN has claimed a division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
開始表。
Voting begins. Please check your votes. If there is no question, voting now is closed. Displaying the results: 84 present, 82 for, 1 against. The question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. All the proceedings on the Road Tunnels Government Amendment Bill 2024 have been concluded in the Committee of the Whole Council. Council now resumes. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, I now report to the Council that the Road Tunnels Government Amendment Bill 2024 has been passed by Committee of the Whole Council without amendment. I move the motion that this Council adopts the report. I now propose the question to you that the Secretary's motion be passed. I now put the question to you as stated. With those in favor, please raise their hands. Mr. Michael TIEN claims a division. The division bell will run for 5 minutes.
開始表。
Voting begins. Mr. Sunny Tang, are you going to vote? Please check your votes. If there is no question, voting is closed. Please display the result. 84 present, 82 for, 1 abstention. The question is agreed by a majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Third reading, Road Tunnels Government Amendment Bill 2024.